Welcome, everybody, to Inside the Classroom. I am the host of this podcast. My name is Sarah Willis, and I am so excited that you have decided to join me for episode 1, which is the 5 W's. This is where I will introduce myself. I will answer a few questions that are important, and then we'll get to the why that is this podcast. So to start, like I said, my name is Sarah Willis. Have been a teacher for 11 years, this year being my 11th. So I am incredibly new to this profession. I have some experience, obviously, but not as much as some of you out there. So I cannot wait to pick your brains, to get to know you, but also to represent the newbies in the room. And so I'm excited about that. I am a third generation educator. I have 2 grandparents on both sides of my family, as well as 2 parents that have been in education. So I am proud to be carrying the mantle, so to speak, even though my dad tried to talk me out of it several times. It didn't work. I hold certifications in secondary ELA. Currently, I am teaching 11th grade English, which is the junior year. I also hold certifications in ESOL, which in Texas, that is our emergent bilingual or our students of a second language population in classroom. I love teaching them. Mainly Spanish is what they come to me speaking, but I've had Palestinian, I've had Vietnamese, Puerto Rican, and I love teaching those kids. I'm also special ed certified, special education. So I teach with a co-teacher in the inclusion setting with a lot of students who have either disabilities or 504 accommodations and modifications that are implemented in the classroom. I've been a little bit of everywhere in Texas. I'm not going to disclose different locations, but I've been big and I've been little. The smallest classification that I have been is 3A, and I am currently located at a 6A, which is very large. We can get into the details later, but I've been a part of very small teams. We call them PLCs, which is the professional learning community of 4 people, which would be your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. But I'm also have been a part of 30 plus teams and PLCs, having to work with many different perspectives and opinions and also experiences, which is really cool. I have to mention in the who that I am, as I said, secondary. I have several friends who are middle school and elementary out there, and I love what you do. Unfortunately, I cannot sympathize. I have no idea what your day-to-day is. I would assume it's about the same as me, just on a smaller scale. So I don't want to leave any elementary or middle school teachers out. I hope to welcome you guys, interview some of you, hopefully encourage and equip you also. But I am high school minded. I am high school focused. And so I don't ever want you to feel like you are left out. I am also a coach's wife and a mom of littles. So that keeps me extremely busy outside of the classroom. My husband is also an educator. So we'll see if one of my children become a 4th generation educator, which would be pretty exciting. First and foremost, I am a believer in Jesus Christ, and I believe in the biblical definition of Christianity. It is for all of these reasons, especially that last one, that I believe teaching is a calling. I believe that it is something we are called to do. It's not just a job to us. It's not just a paycheck to us. It is something that we love and we pursue and we are determined and sometimes a little bit enthusiastic, a little bit too much to do on a daily basis. And so that is the who, and that is my story. I have a lot of different things to bring to the table, one of them being enthusiasm. So I hope you can see that even through your screen, that I love what I do. The what of this podcast will serve as my attempt to help public educators across the nation, even worldwide, if it happens to go that far, because school and education, especially public, is getting very difficult in light of lots of things, which we will get to in different topics but it's difficult. And I have seen more now than ever people leaving this profession, not just retiring, which is obviously the end goal for a lot of us, but mid-year, people getting fed up and discouraged and so frustrated with different things. That has encouraged me to finally follow through with this podcast. So hoping what it will be is just stories from me, stories from you, that you send me via comment or through email or social media outreach, that will show you that you're not alone, that we are in this together, despite me being in Texas and you being somewhere else. But I want to help. And so the tagline to this is encouraging and equipping public educators, encouraging in stories, the good and the bad, hopefully more good than bad, and then equipping you, giving advice. Obviously, because I've mentioned I'm a believer, most of my advice will come from scripture, because we have the greatest example before us, the example of Jesus Christ as a teacher. And through his 3 years of ministry, he saw difficulty, he saw challenges, and he met each of those with patience, which is something I pray that educators have. And then eventually to get to guests, to have educators from all walks of life, from all experiences, first year to near retirement, to come on, let us pick their brains, maybe give us their advice or their hopes and dreams for education in the future, because I think a lot of us will agree that education is moving in a direction that is somewhat unknown. So in this podcast, here are 3 things that you will not get. You will not get the mention of the school or the district that anyone is in, not mine, not theirs, because we do need some form of anonymity and protection from that, because we are not in this to shame or to expose or to threaten, hopefully. So no names will be mentioned. I hopefully removed all remnants of the district and the school that I work for from behind me, since we are in my classroom. The second thing is no names of students, even aliases. I've tried that in the past, Joe or Bob or Phil or Lily or anyone, and there's usually a Bob, a Phil, or a Lily that thinks they get named, which is not the case. So I ask for myself and also from you in your stories to take those names out when sharing the good and the bad. The last is no cussing. Because I teach high school, that is a daily occurrence for me, both unintentional and intentional. And so if those stories or if those experiences include those words, I will leave those out. That is not something that I like to do. And then as an English teacher, I often encourage an expansion of vocabulary. So I always usually tell my students to find a better word or synonym, which would be nice. We will have topics from everything, from grading to discipline to dealing with parents to policies and procedures to possibly content. I'm open to absolutely anything and everything, and I welcome different point of views. I'm hoping not to turn this podcast into any type of yes man to what I say. I would love to be disagreed with, argued with to a certain point. I don't like conflict, but I don't mind a different point of view. So I hope to encourage you, if you disagree with anything I say, to leave a comment, to send an email, to reach out to me in any kind of way. I would love to engage in that kind of discourse. The when and the where will depend. Hopefully not. I like to be consistent, but Monday nights is the best for me, as well as later in the evening. As I mentioned, I am a mom of littles, and so they take up a lot of time and a lot of energy. So I'm hoping to air by Monday at 8 o'clock, which is after their bedtime. And so you can have at it into the wee hours of Tuesday morning, even and throughout your week. I like starting off Mondays on a high note. I always in my class do something called Tell Me Something Good after the weekend. on Monday mornings. And so use this as your something good. Listen to it as you get ready for school. Listen to it as you drop the kids off at their school. And I hope that it can start your Tuesday and then continue that out through the rest of your week until the next Monday comes along. I'm really excited about that. And finally is the why. So I did the who, the what, the when, the where, and now the why. The why is the biggest part of this podcast. And as I already said, that teaching through COVID the last 2 years has been extremely tough. I think all of us can agree on that. And most of us were just in survival mode and possibly still are. One of my favorite memes is of the cat who's just reaching and holding on with your life, and all of it always says hang in there. And so I feel like some of us are still hanging in there. And so the why is to encourage, is again to let you know that you are not alone in the difficult times or in the good times. Homecoming is one of my favorite times of year. And so it's really easy to love my job then because of the decorations and the costumes and, of course, the football game at the end of the week. But then that goes away and the lull comes back and the mundane comes back. So the biggest why is to encourage and then to follow up that encouragement with some advice, with some equipment that you can use. Maybe not to give you something that you don't have. I can't give enthusiasm to you if you're not an automatically enthusiastic person, but I can give you tips and tidbits and maybe funny stories that you can take back with you. So I want to encourage and I want to equip you. Here's the reason why. Here's the reason why I want to do this is because it is a calling. We as teachers have such an amazing opportunity to truly change the world. So I have a list of about 5 different things that we get to do as educators. One is we get to set a good example. Not that I'm perfect by any means, but I try and follow the perfect example, which is Christ. But hopefully I get asked questions or I get made fun of maybe a little bit for that example that I'm setting, but I get to do that. I don't have to, but I get to. Number 2 is we get to light a fire inside of one of our students for a possible career. That's one thing that I look forward to most, is exposing them to everything that they're good at. Something that is, I think, gaining popularity is the smartness profile. And if you haven't heard of that yet, I encourage you to go and Google it, because the smartness profile shows every single student that they are smart in an area. And most of the time, it ain't English. And so I usually lead with that because English is tough and kind of subjective. But they're smart in computers or video gaming, or they're smart in the arts and music, or they're smart in just memorizing things, which is nursing and the medical profession. You've got to know and remember a lot. And so when I see that fire that is lit, something that they want to pursue, it gets me pumped and I get so excited and ecstatic for them. The third thing is we get to influence our students to change the world. One thing I love to think about as an educator is at some point, every person has had a teacher in their life. Obviously, at least one, but multiple. So when you think about Jennifer Lopez or Post Malone or Julie Andrews or Ben Carson or someone in our political entertainment realm, all of them had teachers. And I guarantee every single one of those people can pinpoint and name a teacher that made a difference. That's our opportunity. That's what we get to do. And so that's why I walk in every single day excited, because hopefully I get to make that impression. We also get to be the reason they come to school. We are sometimes their escape. I love hearing, Miss Willis, I came to school today for your class. That's just straight up exciting. And I love to hear that. Maybe because we have fun and I make them laugh and I make a fool of myself that they remember she fell down on purpose, or did she fall down on purpose? I'm not really sure. But maybe it's because they feel loved and they feel wanted and they feel heard and they feel seen. Makes me think of a scene from one of my favorite films called Freedom Writers. Many of you are probably aware of this film or have even shown it in your own class, but it's the story of Erin Guerrero. And she became a public high school teacher in Los Angeles in the 90s. And obviously, there's a lot of detail that I'm leaving out, so please read the book, watch it. But there's one specific scene in that film where those students are coming back from their summer break. And one student in particular was not looking forward to coming back. He was wearing the same clothes as last year. He had just experienced an eviction with he and his mother. They were homeless. So on that first day of school, he shows up not wanting to be there until he thinks of Miss G's class. And he thinks of all of the students that were in that class with him. And in the film, I get chill bumps just thinking about it. He says, "I'm home." And I love that. That, educators, is what we do. We give them a home when they maybe don't have one, or we give them a place to feel like they're themselves and free to be them. And again, I point back, if they feel that way in my class, it's because of Christ. It's because of who my identity is in, that I'm able to be that way with them, to love them and to nurture them and to encourage them, to hold them accountable, right, to certain things, which we will get into later. So I digress. So believers, non-believers in Jesus, just educators. I created this podcast to help, to give you a listening ear, but also a voice to speak out in a very non-expose way without naming names or calling out districts, just to be heard. And so I am so excited that you are possibly going to come on this journey with me with Inside the Classroom. So the last thing that I want to leave you is kind of a theme verse, a direction that I would like this train to go in. And it is Ephesians 4, 11 through 16. So I'm going to read it. "And he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherd, and teachers to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, so that we may no longer be children tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes." Sounds like our world, right? "Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, making the body grow so that it builds itself up in love." There's so much to unpack there, and I promise we will get to it. But that right there is God's gift to us, for us as teachers to implement into our classrooms. So, welcome. I'm glad you were here. I hope that you tune in next week, which will be next Monday for episode 2. Not really sure what it's going to be. I'm just going to have to wait and see how this week goes. Maybe wait and hear back from some of you guys. So I cannot wait to see where God takes us, where our states take us, as we are educators. But I want to give you so many reasons to stay inside the classroom. Until next time, adios.